Good morning. Good morning. Namaskar. This is Suraj Singh speaking from Bharat, India on this day, July 18, 2021. Sunday, sleeping day, resting day. Title is Quality and Safety in connection with works and COVID-19 and quality. That is true, as if certificates is a measurement of what we are. Certificates means a measurements of what we are. That's true. How far it goes, that is the question. Question to everyone. What does certificates mean? Certificates mean that whatever we do, whatever work we do, whatever work, and whatever certificate we have or one has, it's got direct relation to performance, to do intended and extended job. Intend, I mean to say, intention with everybody is that someone should work for one in a particular way, in a satisfactory way. In a way, quality is affected, and before quality is affected, safety is affected. Quality and safety are very important parameters to measure factually what work has been done. If somebody is a professional, somebody is certified, but that somebody is only certified, I mean to say, quality criteria, quality point, safe working point, both miss away. In that case, that certificate is not valued. Certificate has been a fashion, actually. You can say certificate or citation or whatever you can say, or awards, formal awards. All these have been fashion. You will find many certificates with everybody. But when quality comes into picture, comes into play, it doesn't work. Quality of system, quality of product, quality of acts, quality of services, all miss away, and it's very difficult to handle it. Because consumer who is leader of market becomes suppressed. Though they say customer satisfaction is important, customer satisfaction is top priority, that is only on papers, that is only on policy of an organization. In fact, customer satisfaction is ignored. Profit satisfaction, commercial satisfaction, business satisfaction overrule consumer satisfaction, customer satisfaction, end user satisfaction. And because there are so many items and so many end users, who bothers? They bother only on papers, only on documents. There are so many examples I can give you, really some unpleasant situations. I'm just giving you an example. Recently I bought 2-number HP wired mouses. I paid $598 for these 2 mouses. Online I bought through vlebazaar.com. I was happy that I would not go to market to buy these items. and these items shall be delivered to me. And in fact, these were delivered to me. I got it. It was on, you can say, July 12th. I placed order, paid money in advance, and on 13th, there were so many messages in between placing orders and delivery. I think a queue of messages. This has happened. We have packed. We have received order. We have packed it. We have handed over this. They will contact you. This and that. Well, okay. Your information system is fine. It works very well. And I got delivery on 13th afternoon. I was happy. Okay, this organization, this VLE, Bazaar.com is efficient. They delivered. One part was okay. Okay, that's fine. I was sure that is HP company material, and this must work. Then I say I trusted, and I started using these two items, unpacked as usual. Two items, and I tried to use it. I put in one to my laptop. I was surprised to see it didn't work at all. It is simply a mouse, wired mouse. When I plugged in, it should work. No, it didn't work. I thought maybe there is some other system in this. I tried to see, there was no other switch on that. And I tried to see its catalog, its data sheet. It didn't tell anything except just connected. I was very much upset. What should I do? I don't know. It's not working. What? Okay. I tried once, I tried twice, I tried 3 times, 4 times. It didn't work. I was upset. What to do? What now? To whom to ask? Then okay, I tried second piece. I unpacked second piece and fixed it. It worked. It worked, and I was okay, little relaxed. It's okay, fine, it's working. I again tried that one. It didn't work. What to do? One is working, one is not working. And this HP, of course, HP wired mouse, it costs around 300 per mouse with this. Then I say, okay, what to do? Then I sent mail to that company who sent on their given email IDs that I got 2 pieces and one is working and one's not working. Please replace. Nobody responded. Just say, okay, we'll take care in 24 hours. And nobody took care in 24 hours. Nobody called me. I sent another mail, then another mail like that. Means I even abused them. I got angry and abused them. Nothing happened. You contact this and contact that and go to there and go to that. Go to this website and you file your complaint. That website didn't work. That URL didn't work. It didn't accept any complaint. And then I said, oh, you are sleeping, you don't respond. And then I said, you bloody hell company you are. And what to do? Means you paid money and you are selling scrap. Then I contacted HP. I mailed to them. I mailed to HP site. Same thing. No good response. Means they only believe in political or in diplomatic answers. No real answers. Nobody tried to help me. Neither HP and no VLE. Bazaar.com means you feel like you are cheated, means you are robbed. Means one item is working, one is not working. Question arises, why is not working? You paid money, item is new one, branded one, non-second hand. Why it didn't work? It's a question mark. I don't know why. You have to answer me. Same thing I told HP guys also, you have to answer me. When I send mail, they say, oh, this is not right person, send to other person. Means then I got a call from them. Means what's problem? You bloody fool, you don't know what's problem? You don't understand? I have given you many mails. I have written that I bought 2 and what's not. I have to explain you. I have to explain to you that you don't understand English. You go there and you go there, a bloody fool, shut up. I will not go anywhere. I paid money. They answer, oh, your language is very bad, your tone is very bad, if you don't do this and that, we will not entertain you. Oh, shut up, I answered them. I paid money, you didn't do anything free of cost. You have to respond to this. If you elect monkeys vendors, I'm not responsible. It's your responsibility. It's your product, not my product. And I'm asking you, I paid to you. You know how many mails I have written? You don't care for that. You don't for a customer. Bloody shut up. I told clearly what to do in that case. Means you are wasting your time. If I have to go to market and buy it, then why should I put order online? I'll go and buy from market because I wanted to get it delivered. That's why I'm so do. Now you say go there and go there. Then why should I apply? Why should I buy it through your webline system? Really, believe me, you get very angry because you're wasting your time. I wasted my time, but many mails to both, and they didn't care. This bloody fool commerce it is. It's no more quality. It may be HP, it may be their vendor, whoever. They are only interested in commerce. They are not interested. Means how can you get something? It's not working and you are buying new. Means there is no one to test. They have quality system. They may be following that. They will claim. Everybody claims you are doing this. I bought 2 items. One is not working, one is working. This means 50% quality collapsed. 50% system collapsed. No one tried to make sure before dispatch that item works. Whose fault it is this? Then why should I waste my money in going to your service center and raising this? It is new item. I'm not saying I use it for 2 months or 1 month or 3 months and now check it. It didn't start working. What to do? Such monkeys work in this country. They are monkeys, I can call them. Not only monkeys, they are dogs. So we will say, because I am paying money and you have to give me, you can't harass me, but you are harassing me. Your vendor harassed me. Now you as principal are harassing me. You're not responding properly. You are just blaming me. Don't write such words and don't speak like that. I will speak such words 10 times. Because I am a customer. I am not your servant. You are not my owner. I am paying you. You are not doing any obligation on me. You have to give me quality. You have to give me right product. This is what's happening in quality system. I'm just giving you an example. Irrelevant conduct. Nobody checks anything. Only on papers. They believe in telephones. They don't want to answer. Am I generation of telephone? Okay, you want to finish everything. You just give me reference, do this and do that. What bloody fool you are sitting for? What for you are sitting? Only for charging money and your job is over? I didn't ask you why you are charging this much money. I paid that much money and you have to give me right product. You have no right to tell me go there and do this. You go and do your job. It's your duty to get me this product. Just like you dispatch me another one and take it back. This is what commerce is. This is what business is. You did not satisfy me. I'm very angry with this, though it's very small item. But why small or big? Your conduct is bad. You have no right to take money if you can't deliver good product, working product, performance product. It's your duty to make sure before dispatch it works. That's what I say. Quality doesn't exist. It's not only in construction, it's everywhere. You buy whatever item. I buy 1 year back, one item, Microtech, you can say UPS for my desktop. I bought that one. It was about 2,400 something. I installed it. In 1 week, it collapsed. It didn't work. It stopped working. Why? 2 years warranty and it stopped working in 1 week. And when you call them, they will come with with many mails, anything. Of course, there will be a lot of queue for messages, as this world is moved by messages or telephone calls, nothing else. He came, he checked, he said there's a voltage problem, this is that problem. Well, he repaired it. I'm not saying that. But in 1 week, if your delivered good is collapsed, it doesn't work. An HP issue It's very small item, wired mouse, and you send scrap to me. Of course it is a scrap. It's something rejected, it doesn't work. So you cheat your consumer. You are not giving anything free. Well, where's quality then? If quality doesn't exist in small items, how can you expect quality exist in long-term items like structures? Really, it's very much surprising for me, for everybody, that it may be national organization, it may be international organization like HP, or it may be like Microtech, or it may be like whatsoever. Culture only on paper, it exists. Culture exists, work culture exists only on papers, it doesn't exist in reality. It's really very, very sad, very, very unbecoming state. As I have angry, I shall be angry because I am not getting service for what I paid. And you can't expect polite attitude. You can't, actually, if you are my friend, I'll slap you, believe me. You are wasting my time. I have to write many mails for what? Because your product is bad. This means your company is bad, your system is bad. Rather than asking me, or rather than promising me to improve your system, you just are killing me. You just don't help me. I want a system, good system to work, but no, it doesn't work. So what? If it happens with me, it can happen with everyone. So quality doesn't exist. How can I bought one laptop in, I think, 2014 or 15 or 16 somewhere. It worked for, I think, for 2 years, 3 years. Then it's Windows 8. It's Windows 8 crashed. It didn't work. So I replaced that with something else. After some time, it's some other parts broke. HP laptop, it's very reputed. Company is very reputed. But reputation doesn't mean perfect. You are running business, you are a manufacturer, you are industrialist. You should improve. Rather than improving, you are becoming arrogant. I have every right to be arrogant because I selected your product. I trusted you. But you don't deserve that trust. Being a big company, you should immediately replace that. But you are asking me, you are telling me, go there and go there and go there. Why should I go? It may cost me, means I have to spend my time, I have to take my car, go to your service center, request them. Why? It's your problem. It is your problem. Why should I spend money on that? This means that mouse which I got has added cost. I have to go there, spend 100 rupees or 50 rupees on my car driver, and I have to spend time of half a day or 2-3 hours for that. Who will pay me for that? It's a question mark. You may write any condition, it doesn't matter. Question is, how much support? This is also a part of support. I bought it. I'm your customer. You have to help me. It's your product. You charge for that. What I mean to say, we have to analyze like this. All this constitutes quality. How you handle delivery, how you pack material. Your quality exists only up to placing order, not after that. I really am surprised. What is quality then? If you don't take any responsibility, you put responsibility on customer. then your online is foolishness. This is not a facility, this is a harassment. If you get product good, okay, fine. If you don't get product, means you have to roam here and there. For what? You may be, you may expect anything. You may be general manager. You may be whatever manager. I kick you out if I am owner of that organization. You're not doing a job. You're telling customer do this. Stupidity it is. Why can you say that? On what basis you can say that? You should replace it immediately. Send another consignment and replace it. It's your problem. It's not consumer problem. However, this is what I explained about practical quality, because when I have such experiences, everybody must have. Maybe they are not able to speak, they are not able to write, they may keep silent and they may waste their time going to service center or this and that, or request those people. It's really dirty business. No quality control, no quality system, and you are just only interested in publicity, and that publicity also is fake. When you say our product is like this, like that, so much, so good, so bad, it's so bad actually, you should say. So really speaking, frankly, don't trust these people, HP or non-HP, because they are only interested in money. You can't trust them. So I think I should not buy from them through online. It's better to go to market and so that you can go to that shopkeeper and buy it again, or so replace it. And I don't believe in these warranties as well, because there is no quality at all. One thing, somebody thinks, this very small item, if I go there, I spend money, okay, I buy another one. That bad intention comes to mind. Same thing happened to me. That was e-plug mouse I bought. I bought 2 mouses, same way, because I had 2 systems, so buy 2 mouses. And because that shopkeeper recommended me, don't go for HP. This one is cheap. You buy this and there's 3 years warranty. I was happy, okay, if shopkeeper recommends that. I usually buy items from that shopkeeper. I bought it. Then after 1 year, I think I went. Then this item didn't work. I went. Oh, he was very, okay, no problem, 3 years warranty, just give me a slip. I receive it and I come here after 2 days or 3 days, I replace it. I was happy, okay, at least I responded. But later, when I saw that person said, oh, that company is not responding, they cannot give, I'm giving another one. Oh my God, that company is not responding, you give me another one. This means you befooled me. It's 3 years warranty. Where is warranty then? So means you can't trust anybody. Don't be attracted towards this 3 years or 2 years. All this is nonsense. Such an item means I don't trust these people. I don't trust them. They will give you a fake discount of 20-30 rupees or 30 rupees. This is cost and we are selling you at this amount. No quality, believe me, no quality. Quality is fake, quality has collapsed, there is nothing. Safety is something else, which engineers have to see, because safety can't be sold. Item is sold. Was safety or there was no safety. I can't say. If item is not good, item is not controlled, it's not having any quality, this means how can there be quality in safety itself? Then this is a question mark. So quality plus safety plus health plus environment, and quality of material and quality of system, both I'm talking. When I say quality, means it comprises of both quality of material, quality of system, quality of work, quality of everything that comes into picture. Whether what they do, I don't know, they test it or don't test it, but when I test it, it doesn't work, I should say it is zero quality. And when safety, I can't say of safety, I can't imagine whether there was safety or there was no safety. So I say it's a question for everyone to understand that, first of all, try to speak. Don't hide They may say anything because they are only interested in money. They don't care for consumers. I'm not servant to any company. They're not. I clearly wrote in response that you are not my honor. I paid to you, and you are supposed to give me right product. Because your product didn't want, I should say that is scrappy, and you are selling the scrap. Your vendor, you selected, it's not working properly. They are sleeping in their bloody hell. And I don't care for what you say. I will speak clearly because you deserve such treatment. Why should I waste my time on mails and communication to you? When you are at mistake, I'm not at mistake. If shopkeeper has to return, replace, and you have to replace, you are also shopkeeper for me. That shopkeeper is small one, you are big one. Every vendor you select, it's your responsibility. It's not my responsibility. I paid, I should get right product. If you can't tell me, you can't say me, go there and go there and go there. This is a bloody answer. I want right answer. Required everywhere and in every activity in life, and in engineering, there is a must. So we have to understand this point. Engineers must realize quality facts. So here now, product is bad. What should I say? I should say engineers working in that section, supervisor working in that section, manager, organizer working in that section, all are incompetent. I should say that, right? I have full right. Everybody involved with that product is rubbish because nobody cared. Package supervisor is rubbish. Engineer in production, a floor engineer is rubbish. All sleep. And those who pack it, they are rubbish. And those who do not respond properly, they are rubbish. Means, internet means just they keep you dancing. You dance according to their instructions. Simple answer is, you replace product and that's it. Oh no, this is not sales section. You are writing the wrong person. You write to this mail, means you have to keep a track on all those mails. And there may be 10 mails, 15 mails, 20 mails, I don't know how many. And they say your conduct is very bad, your writing is very, oh shut up, I take you out. If you are before me, I will slap in your face because you are wasting my time. I did not buy this product to allow you to waste my time, to harass me. The question is that, where is quality? I am searching for quality. Where does it live? I don't know quality address. I don't know how does it work. I want to know where is quality. Where is its home? Nowhere. That's my question, my dear friends. Don't misunderstand. Language is not that, but these people deserve this language. They deserve this. You can't cheat public, but you are cheating public. You claim you are taking care of the customers, but you are not taking care. It's only engineers who can change this scenario. Engineers must realize quality facts. I'm not blaming that salesperson. Salesperson's fault is that salesperson did not check it before sending. Is it not a part of quality? It's a part of quality. Before handing over or before packing something, it's your duty to test it. Just like you go to market and buy a LED or bulb or something else, certainly that shopkeeper will test it first and give it to you later on. First test it. If it doesn't work, he will not give you that phone. So why did you not test? Why did you not say? Why you want to charge money? I trusted you, that's why I paid you in advance. Otherwise, I should pay you only when I get this item. So I did an obligation on you to trust, but you don't value my trust. That's my question. There is no transaction on trust here. It is trust plus money. So we should be very careful dealing with these hi-fi companies. They only lie. I put my notes on Facebook also. I put my notes on LinkedIn also. I have full right to say, and I am talking on behalf of public. Speak up. Don't accept these bloody hell commercial people. They just are interested in making money and nothing else. systems quality to be devised and achieved. This means there is no device system. There's no achievement, only talks and advertisements, publicity, and nothing else. Just like governments do. There's no difference between government working and these people working. Just like government issue fake news, fake statements, these people also do same. Broken system means broken life linked to broken system. Systems quality to be devised and achieved. Professionals, individual quality to be amended. And one must be forced to amend its quality for reliability by additional teaching and by additional knowledge dissemination. Relevant element of product defined quality to be achieved, and individuals' required attitude quality to be streamlined. Individuals' dedication to be applied on actions, work commitment to be made and fulfilled for delivery. Work commitment to be made and fulfilled for delivery. All other parameters to deal with per requirements. That's very important. All stages in designs may be significant, but merely design doesn't suffice. If construction and development are not affected, that's what happened. Construction of this device didn't affect. Design might be right. So how can you say that? Defined quality cannot be allowed to be ignored, but it was allowed to be ignored. That's where I am serious. Now we come to our own topic. Designs, etc. are gone. I don't want to repeat same thing every day. Now, because I was on safety, I was on radiographic operation. That is, I did yesterday. Says this procedure applied to all activities involved use of radioactive isotope for carrying out non-destructive testing, NDT it's called. And I say we must be somewhere in a stream of in this case I would say, let me see where I was. Can I find that file? I was using, I think there was some book available on this. Let me go through that book first so that we can get background of this. That is management documents. July. Radiography, yes, it's that, I think it's that. So I like to share with you this book now. I don't know, I was there in that, but let me see how it works. This book, safety report, serial number. Okay, I'm not interested in that. Radiation protection and safety in industrial radiography. This is titled Radiation Protection and Safety in Industrial Radiography. This is by following states are members of International Atomic Energy Agency. It's written, and these states are here. All countries' name are given. I'm not interested in that. I'll move forward. Agency's statute was approved on 23rd October 1956 by Conference on Statute of IAEA held at United Nations headquarters, New York. It entered into force on 29 July 1957. Okay. Headquarters of agency are situated in Vienna. Its principal objective is to accelerate and enlarge contribution of atomic energy to peace, health, and prosperity throughout the world. Well, okay, now let's go further. Safety report, series number 13, radiation protection in industrial radiography, International Atomic Energy Agency, Vienna, 1999. VIC library catalog. Okay, leave it behind. Now let us see what forward says. Use of ionizing radiation. Use of ionizing radiation, particularly in medicine and industry, is growing throughout world, with further expansion likely as technical developments result from research. One of longest established application of ionizing radiations is industrial radiography. One of longest established applications of ionizing radiation is industrial radiography, which uses both X radiation and gamma radiation. Which uses both X radiation and gamma radiation to investigate integrity of equipment and structures. Industrial radiography is widespread in almost all member states. It is indispensable to quality assurance required in modern engineering practice and feature in work of multinational companies and small businesses alike. Industrial radiography is extremely versatile. Equipment required is relatively inexpensive and simple to operate. It may be highly portable and capable of being operated by a single worker in a wide range of different conditions, such as at remote construction site, offshore locations, and cross country. You can say offshore locations is remote construction sites, such as remote construction sites, offshore locations in cross country pipelines, as well as in complex foundation fabrication facilities. Associated hazards demand that safe working practices be developed in order to minimize potential exposure of radiographers. Associated hazards demand that safe working practices be developed in order to minimize potential exposure of radiographers and whatever other persons who may be in vicinity of work. Use of shielded enclosures or fixed facilities with effective safety devices significantly reduces radiation exposures arising from work. Use of shielded enclosures, fixed facilities with effective safety devices significantly reduces whatever radiation exposures arising from work. Demands and rewards of industrial radiography. Demands and rewards of industrial radiography: ready availability of essential equipments, wide range of working conditions, and fact that techniques employed usually involve routine manipulation and exposure of powerful gamma emitting sources and X-ray machines have all been identified as contributory to likelihood of accidents. Let's repeat this important. Demands and rewards of industrial radiography: readily available of essential equipment, wide range of working conditions, and fact that techniques employed usually involve routine manipulation and exposure of powerful gamma emitting sources and X-ray machines have all been identified as contributory to likelihood of accidents. Even in member states with highly developed regulatory infrastructures, industrial radiographers on average receive radiation doses that exceed those of other occupationally exposed workers. And individual industrial radiographers are most likely group of workers to receive doses approaching relevant dose limits. Radiation protection and safety in industrial radiography is thus of great importance in both developed and developing countries. This safety report summarizes good and current state of art practices in industrial radiography and provides technical advice on radiation protection and safety. It contains information for regulatory authorities, operating organizations, workers, equipment manufacturers, and client organizations with intention of explaining their responsibilities and meaning to enhance radiation protection and safety in industrial radiography. Although great care has been taken to maintain accuracy of information contained in this publication, neither IAEA nor its member states assume whatever responsibility for consequences which may arise from its use. Use of particular designations of countries or territories doesn't imply any judgment by publisher IAEA as to legal status of such countries or territories, of their authorities and institutions, or of delimitation of their boundaries. Mention of names of specific companies or products, whether or not indicated as registered, does not imply any intention to infringe proprietary rights, nor should it be construed as an endorsement or recommendation on part of IAEA. In this, contents are introduction, which is background, objective, scope, structure. Other one is objectives of radiation protection and safety, and organizational responsibilities, which are regulatory authority, operating organization, industrial radiographer, worker, manufacturers and supplier, client. Types of exposures devices are gamma radiography sources and containers, gamma radiography sources and containers, X-ray radiography equipment, accelerators, underwater radiography equipment, pipe crawler equipment, real-time radiography, neutron radiography, design and use of shielded enclosures, fixed facility, enclosure design and use, shielding design for a shielded enclosure, control of expose in shielded enclosure, operating procedure for shielded enclosure, site radiography procedures, boundary of control area, shielding, administrative arrangements, monitoring, additional precautions for gamma radiography, additional precautions for X radiography including use of accelerators, additional precautions for underwater radiography, additional precautions for pipeline crawlers, storage, movement and transport of radiographic sources and exposure devices, storage of source resources, movement and transport of sources, emergency response planning, emergencies resulting in exposures, emergency planning and preparedness, specific emergency procedures, accident notification and report, references, glossary, contributors and drafting and review. Introduction. Radiography is of vital importance. The background. Radiography is of vital importance in non-destructive testing. We call it NDT. Radiography ensures integrity of equipment and structures such as vessels, pipes, welded joints, castings and other devices. Integrity of this equipment affects not only safety and quality of products used by workers but also safety and quality of environment for workers and public at large. Safety record of over 40 years of application of ionizing radiation is very good. In particular, radiography can be performed so as to pose a negligible risk on public and with sufficiently low occupational radiation exposure so as to pose no undue radiological risk on workers. However, experience has also shown examples of bad practice. Radiography produces high dose rates so that a person accidentally exposed to primary beam or in close contact with an unshielded source might within minutes or even seconds receive a dose that results in injury. Also, contamination can result from corroded or damaged sources. Working under adverse conditions might result in operational situations in which principle of keeping doses as low as reasonably achievable is compromised or not met. These aspects indicate need to achieve a high degree of professionalism in radiography, using sources and devices designed to highest standards and working in an environment that promotes a safety culture. This can be accomplished by means of an appropriate national and organizational infrastructure, effective training of workers, compliance with safety requirements, and effective quality control, together with good design, manufacture, and maintenance of sources and devices. Objectives. What is objective? Safety report discusses good and current state of art practices for safe control and operation of radiography equipment and facilities. It's recognized that this equipment may be used in countries with little or no experience in its use or without a well developed program of radiation protection. Purpose is to provide information on safe practices to persons intending to use radiographic techniques and equipment and to governments and their regulatory authorities responsible for regulating such use. What is the scope? This safety report relates to all types of industrial radiography equipment and facilities. It's only concerned with radiation protection and safety and does not deal with how to use radiographic technique for non-destructive testing. Structure of this: radiation protection and safety objectives. Radiation protection and safety objectives and considerations are presented in Section 2, while Section 3 describes typical organizational responsibilities for radiation protection and safety in industrial radiography. Section 4, 5, and 6 deal with types of exposures, devices, designs and use of shielded enclosures and site radiography, respectively. In Section 7, radiation safety in storage and transport of radiographic sources is discussed, while Section 8 covers emergency response planning in industrial operations. 2. Objectives and radiation protection and safety. Primary aim of radiation protection and safety is to provide appropriate standards of protection and safety for people without unduly limiting benefits of practices giving rise to exposure. This primary aim is expressed by following objectives of radiation protection and safety: protection objective and safety objective. Protection objectives to prevent occurrence of deterministic effects. Protection objectives are to prevent occurrence of deterministic effects, just like you can say detrimental effects in individuals by keeping doses below relevant threshold and to ensure that all reasonable steps are taken to reduce occurrence of stochastic effects in population at present and in future. I repeat, to prevent occurrence of deterministic effect in individuals by keeping doses below relevant threshold and to ensure that all reasonable steps are taken to reduce occurrence of stochastic effects in population at present and in future. Safety objectives to protect individuals, society and environment from harm by establishing and maintaining effective defenses against radiological hazards from sources. Industrial radiography sources emit X-rays. Industrial radiographic sources emit X-rays and gamma radiation, which produce dose rates of order of hundreds of milligauss per hour at 1 meter. These high dose rates at close distances can cause severe injuries such as radiation burns following exposure of few seconds. Workers using such sources must achieve protection objective to prevent doses arising from acute and chronic accidental exposures and unsafe work practices likely to cause injuries to develop. Safe work practices shall protect not only individual worker but also others in vicinity and public from serious consequences arising from loss or uncontrolled use of these sources. These radiation protection and safety objectives apply to design, manufacture or construction, commissioning, operation, maintenance and decommissioning of exposure devices, sealed sources and fixed facilities for industrial radiography. They also apply to development, application and review of all operating procedures. Basic safety standards are internationally harmonized safety standards that establish requirements for protection of health and minimization of danger to life. Basic safety standards establish basic requirements for protection against risk associated with exposure to ionizing radiation and for safety of radiation sources that may deliver such exposure to be fulfilled in all activities involving radiation exposure. They indicate different aspects that should be covered by an effective radiation protection program. Present publication provides information on methods that can be used to ensure radiation safety, specifically in industrial radiography. Adherence to requirements of basic safety standards will ensure that during normal operation, maintenance and decommissioning and in emergency situations, radiation exposure of both workers and public is kept as low as reasonably achievable. Economic and social factors being taken into account, that is AILARA principle. Ensure that during normal operation, maintenance and decommissioning and in emergency situations, radiation exposure of both workers and public is kept below relevant dose limits given in BSS, that is basic safety. You can say BSS, that is basic safety standards. Ensure that probability of events giving rise to significant exposures and magnitude of such exposures are kept as low as reasonably achievable. Economic and social factors being taken into account. Several points or concepts need be considered in radiation protection programs. Sources, exposure devices and facilities need be of such a design that faultless operation is ensured as effectively as possible. Design includes sufficient safety systems to prevent, detect and respond to deviations from normal operating conditions. Considering good engineering practice and concepts of redundancy, diversity, independence and quality assurance. This requires that exposure devices and facilities be routinely reviewed and inspected as part of a formal maintenance program to ensure continued safe operation. Quality assurance programs are established to review and assess on a regular basis effectiveness of overall radiation protection program and implementation of radiation safety requirements. A safety culture is fostered and maintained. A safety culture is fostered and maintained among all workers involved in industrial radiography industry, from policymakers and managers of operating organizations to radiographers. This is necessary to encourage a positive attitude towards protection and safety and to discourage complacency, discourage complacency. Industrial radiography is performed in compliance with those constraints. Workers have appropriate qualifications and training. There are available safe operational procedures for both routine, non-routine, and accident situations. A means is provided for detecting incidents and accidents, including those in which human errors were a contributory factor. Exchange of experience and feedback from operational practice is important between all relevant parties involved directly and indirectly in safe performance of radiographic techniques, especially between operators and manufacturers. An analysis of causes and lessons learned will reduce, as far as reasonably practicable, contribution of human error to future accidents and other events that could give rise to exposures. These considerations should be included in design of radiographic sources and devices. Development and conduct of theoretical and practical training programs, emergency and survey equipment, and in development of regulatory requirements, operating procedures, IAEA safety report on accidents in industrial radiography, and lessons to be learned reports previous accidents, lessons learned from them, and preventive actions. Organizational responsibility. Safe performance of industrial radiography. Safe performance of industrial radiography relies on people and organizations involved meeting certain responsibilities. These organizations are regulatory authority, operating organization responsible for carrying out work, industrial radiographers, device manufacturers, qualified experts, and client responsible for hiring and operating organization. It's necessary for all concerned to cooperate. Regulatory authority. A regulatory system is needed. Authorize an application involving sources of radiation to conduct radiography. Consequences of poor or non-existent regulatory control can be serious and may result in hazardous conditions which may remain undetected for long period of time. General functions of regulatory authority include following: development of radiography regulations and guidance, assessment of applications for permission to conduct radiography, authorization of such practices and use of radiation sources associated with them, subject to certain specified conditions, conduct of periodic inspections to verify compliance with conditions, and enforcement of whatever necessary actions to ensure compliance with regulations and standards. I repeat, general functions of regulatory authority include development of radiography regulations and guidance, assessment of applications for permission to conduct radiography, authorization of such practices and use of radiation sources associated with them, subject to certain specified conditions, conduct of periodic inspections to verify compliance with conditions, and enforcement of any or whatever necessary actions to ensure compliance with regard regulations and standards. Authorization process. Control of practices involving exposure devices for industrial radiography is achieved by means of a system of registration or licensing. System used will depend on legislation in place in whatever given country. Major stages of authorization process include control of design, manufacture, and distribution of exposure devices, construction of facilities for industrial radiography, operating program, and decommissioning. Regulation authority has to assess applications for authorization to conduct practices. In these cases, format and contents to be submitted by applicant in support of an authorization application are established by regulatory authority. Before authorizing operation of an exposure device or a shielded enclosure, fixed active facility, regulatory authority or qualified expert, as allowed by national requirements, needs complete review and assessment of exposure device, assessment of exposure device, assessment of facility as constructed, results of whatever commissioning tests, and adequacy of operating and maintenance instructions and procedures of emergency arrangements, records to be kept and reports to be made both internally and to regulatory authority. Training and qualification of personnel and arrangements for periodic training and for ensuring that adequate standards of training are maintained. Quality assurance program for equipment and procedures, arrangements for periodic testing, maintenance, auditing, and surveillance. It's also important to ensure at this stage that all safety features and warning devices operate correctly. There is sufficient radiation protection of all persons and environment. Operating organization is adequately supplied with information on correct operation, maintenance, and decommissioning of exposure device and facilities. Regulatory authority gives authorization to practices and prescribes conditions or requirements to be attached to authorization. These requirements may include specification of sources and devices, including activity or energy as applicable, dose constraints or dose rate limitations, appointment of radiation protection personnel and authorized users, periodic tests and surveys of radiation protection and safety aspects of exposure devices and facilities, record keeping and regular reports to regulatory authority on safety matters such as operating practices, radiological data such as results of radiation surveys, personal dosimetry and medical surveillance, maintenance of exposure devices and fixed facilities, unusual occurrences such as significant malfunction of a safety system, modifications to shielded enclosure, changes in operating procedures and in emergency plan which may have significant consequences for safety. Notifications and reports to regulatory authority on incidents with actual or potential radiological consequences. Places of use and storage and arrangements for personal dosimetry. When safety related changes are indicated, in operational conditions or in equipment and procedure, regulatory authority or qualified expert as allowed needs review and assess proposed changes before authorizing their implementation. Whenever regulatory authority becomes aware of a breach of requirements, it may issue a notice to modify, suspend, or revoke an operating organization's authorization for work before authorizing decommissioning of whatever exposure device or, or shielded enclosure. Regulatory authority may require a review and assessment of proposed procedures to ensure that radiation safety is maintained. Whenever regulatory authority becomes aware of improvements in safety related technologies, it can modify operating organizations' authorization for work, practices, equipment, or facilities. Regulatory inspection. Just a minute. You can just give for 5 minutes this and I'll be back. Because a few minutes are required to hold it for 10 minutes, please. I'll be back. Just I need some walking, stretch my legs. So let's move further. Okay. Regulatory inspections. So we can say regulatory inspections. We can now move on. That is here. Regulatory authority is responsible. Regulatory authority is responsible for ensuring regulatory inspection of practices involving exposure devices. Regulatory authority is responsible for ensuring regulatory inspection of practices involving exposure devices to determine whether applicant is fulfilling requirements and conditions set out in pertinent regulations and or in authorization. Inspections programs confirm that shielded enclosures are constructed and exposure devices are manufactured in compliance with authorizations. All safety systems and components of shielded enclosures and exposure devices are of required quality. Personnel are trained and competent to operate exposure devices safely. Approved operational procedures are being followed. Exposure devices and shielded enclosures are appropriately surveyed and maintained. Sources are sealed and leak-free. Dosimetric and medical surveillance of workers are carried out correctly. Response to incidents follows agreed emergency plan or regulatory requirements. Exposure devices and shielded enclosures are maintained in a safe and secure condition at end of use or are decommissioned safely. Source inventory is properly maintained. In addition to routine regulatory inspection activity, regulatory authority needs ensure that inspection and immediate investigation of events and incidents are carried out. Regulatory inspections are not meant to take away or limit responsibility of operating organization. Enforcement. Regulatory authority has powers to enforce compliance with relevant regulations and authorizations, including powers to take samples, make measurements, and require an operating organization to modify or correct whatever aspect of a procedure, practice, system, structure, or components as necessary to ensure safety. Says regulatory authority has powers to enforce compliance with relevant regulations and authorizations, including powers to take samples, make measurements, and require an operating organization to modify or correct whatever aspect of a procedure, practice, system, structure, or component as necessary to ensure safety. Regulatory authority has power to require an operating organization to cease operation as necessary and reasonable to ensure safety. Severity of actions of regulatory authority depends on hazards and risks caused by deviations or violations. In many cases, a written notice or directive to responsible organization may be sufficient. In event of chronic or extremely serious deviations, activities may be curtailed through suspension or revocation of authorization. Emergency. So responsibilities of regulatory authority in implementation of emergency plans vary according to type of accident and national requirements. Primary responsibility resides with operating organization. Some simple incidents may be resolved by this organization and only require notification to regulatory authority in routine reports or inspections as defined by regulatory authority. In view of diversity of events that might occur, regulatory authority needs draw up emergency plans which are general in nature and include following activities: assessment and projection of off-site radiological consequences, assessment and projection of off-site radiological consequences, maintenance of close contact with local emergency organization, maintenance of close contact with local emergency organizations, assisting operating organizations in carrying out emergency response, identification of potential medical assistance. Regulatory authority or qualified expert may provide guidance to operating organization on how to prepare emergency plan, which is a prerequisite of whatever licensing or authorization procedure. As a minimum, emergency plans cover events with greatest potential for exposure, which will be described in section 8.1. Emergency notification by operating organization. Emergency notification by operating organization is required by regulatory authority. Regulatory authority has to be able to receive emergency notification and to provide an adequate response to emergency. Regulatory authority requires that in emergency response, radiological surveys of areas be carried out as appropriate and doses be assessed. In post-emergency phase, regulatory authority requires a report of investigation into causes of emergency, its consequences, including a full assessment of doses and corrective actions taken to prevent a recurrence. Regulatory authority evaluates extent to which emergency plan was implemented and its effectiveness in order to determine whether plan requires modification. Much can be learned from previous experience of emergency situations and their resolutions. Regulatory authority may be in best position to collate emergency case histories. These accounts are reviewed periodically so that future accidents may be prevented and informed responses are available to deal with future emergencies. Publication of emergency case history reviews helps to alert international community to specific problems and improved solutions developed from experience. Operating organization. Operating organization responsible for possession and use of radiography sources and exposure devices has to obtain from regulatory authority any authorizations necessary for their acquisition, storage and use once necessary prerequisites are met. Operating organization is responsible for carrying out industrial radiography in accordance with legislation and authorizations. Conditions laid down in authorization has to be complied with. Management structure shall vary with size and complexity of organization. However, it establishes clear lines of responsibility and accountability for protection and safety of sources throughout their operational lifetime within an organization up to safe disposal. Senior organization management of operating organization needs make a commitment to safety, to keeping doses as low as possible or reasonably achievable, and has to publicize this to all personnel. This will foster appropriate safety culture within operating organization. Good safety performance is a factor that must be incorporated into daily routine of performing radiography by all personnel so that job can be performed properly. Safety performance should be a factor by which performance of managers, organizers, supervisors and radiographers is judged. Operating organization has to develop and implement a quality assurance program which defines responsibilities at all levels and which details requirements of organization, personnel and equipment. Quality assurance program is based on recognized national or international standards. Internal inspections or audits must be performed routinely and documented. Appointment of qualified experts. Operating organization may appoint one or more suitably qualified persons as qualified experts, radiation protection advisors, to advise on matters relevant to radiation safety. Responsibility for compliance with regulations is not delegated to qualified expert. Responsibility of compliance with regulations is not delegated to qualified expert and remains a responsibility of operating organization. Appointment can be on a part-time basis or as an outside consultant. A radiation protection advisor need not necessarily be an employee of organization. Qualified expert provides information and technical assistance on matters relating to radiation safety, including equipment maintenance, calibration and repair, hazard assessment and emergency planning, commissioning, monitoring and dosimetry, internal inspections, emergency support, investigations of incidents, accidents and overexposures, training. Qualification of qualified expert includes, so this was functions, you can say, qualified expert provides information and technical assistance on matters relating to radiation safety, including equipment maintenance, calibration and repair, hazard assessment and emergency planning, commissioning, monitoring and dosimetry, internal inspections, emergency support, investigations of incidents, accidents and overexposures, training. And qualifications are theoretical training and practical experience to ensure necessary knowledge of properties of ionizing radiations used in industrial radiography. That is, necessary knowledge of properties of ionizing radiations used in industrial radiology, knowledge of hazards of ionizing radiations present and ways in which hazards should be controlled and minimized, general knowledge of working practices in other organizations of same type, knowledge of all relevant regulatory provisions, codes of practice and international and national production standards, guidance, material and other information needed for provision of advice in industrial radiography. Operating organization has to provide qualified experts with adequate information, facilities, equipment and support services as may be needed for qualified expert to work effectively. Appointment of radiation protection officers. Operating organization is to appoint at least one radiation protection officer RPO for overseeing implementation of radiation safety program and to define duties. These duties include hazard assessment and drawing up emergency plan, hazard assessment and drawing up emergency plans, restriction of exposure and maintenance of engineering controls and other equipment provided for such restriction, identification of controlled and supervised areas, control of access to controlled areas, dosimetry and monitoring, adequate monitoring of workplaces, drawing up and reviewing written administrative procedures, drawing up and reviewing written administrative procedures that define means of complying with regulatory or other requirements, drawing up and reviewing operational procedures to ensure that exposures to radiations are allowed, investigation of abnormally high exposures and overexposures, supervision of radiography, implementation of maintenance schedule of all safety related equipment training, investigation of causes, consequences, remedial actions and accident prevention measures, deciding whether whatever special restrictions are required with respect to exposure of declared pregnant female employees. Prior examination of whatever plans for a new fixed facility or for modifications to whatever existing fixed facility from a radiation safety standpoint. Maintaining required safety documents. In cases where more than one RPO is assigned, duties and responsibilities of each are well defined. Even in small organizations consisting of only a few employees, it is essential that someone with adequate knowledge and experience be assigned role of RPO. Regulatory authority has to be notified of these appointments. RPO is to assist operating organization in complying with requirements of authorization and regulations. Ideally, RPO is a person whose responsibilities are separate from those of production, has experience as a radiographer, and has a line management position enabling close supervision of radiographic work. However, this may not be possible in a small operating organization, so that owner may fulfill the role of RPO. Even in this situation, necessary qualifications and experience are essential for person who serves this role, as well as adequate time and resources to perform duties. Minimal requirements and qualities of appointment of an RPO are theoretical training and practical experience as approved by regulatory authority to ensure necessary knowledge of properties of ionizing radiation and regulations used in industrial radiography. Authority to command sufficient respect from people doing work to be able to exercise necessary supervision of radiation protection and to stop unsafe practices. So what are these? There are 2 points here. Theoretical training and practical experience is approved by regulatory authority to ensure necessary knowledge of properties of ionizing radiation and regulations used in industrial radiography. Authority to command sufficient respect from people doing work to be able to exercise necessary supervision of radiation protection and to stop unsafe practices. RPO may work in close association with qualified experts to ensure that all required duties are fulfilled. Appointment of qualified radiographers. Operating organization has to designate individuals who are authorized to operate radiography equipment. Radiographers trainings, experience and attitude, competence as aforesaid. Appointment of qualified radiographers. Operating organization has to designate individuals who are authorized to operate radiography equipment. Radiographers training, experience, attitude and competence as fostered and reinforced by operating organization determining degree of safety associated with daily radiography operations. It may be required by regulatory authority. It may be required by regulatory authority in some jurisdictions that all operators be at least 18 years of age. All operators be at least 18 years of age, meet specified training and experience requirements, and pass an examination set or approved by regulatory authority or some other professional body. Whether such specified training and experience criteria are mandatory or not mandatory, operating organization needs ensure that all operators meet a minimum level in terms of knowledge of safety and radiation protection. Training includes both formal training and supervised hands-on or practical training. Training topics include nature of ionizing radiations. Hold on. So nature of ionizing radiations. It's one. Nature of ionizing radiation, radio biological radiobiological effects, ionizing radiation, radiobiological effects, and terminology and units of ionizing radiation. That is, what's required is this. What do you say? That what we actually find here is that training includes both formal training and supervised hands-on practical training. On 10 topics are these. Nature of ionizing radiation. Nature is that radiobiological effects and terminology and units of ionizing radiation. Dose and dose rates, including calculations using inverse square law. Dose and dose rates, including calculations using inverse square law, and decay laws, with an emphasis on reduction of high dose rate close to an unshielded source, and characteristics of shielding materials, time, distance, and shielding as methods of protection. Dose and dose rates, including calculations using inverse square law and decay law, an emphasis on reduction of high dose rate close to an unshielded source, and characteristics of shielding materials, time, distance, and shielding as methods of protection. Measurement of radiation, operating procedures to restrict radiation exposures to LRA, and RA stands for radiation, of course. Then regulatory authority requirements, safe storage and transportation requirements. Then safe storage and transportation requirements, specific instructions on operation of each piece of equipment to be used, including exposures, devices, personal dose monitoring, radiation survey meters, and emergency equipment. Specific instruction on operation of each piece of equipment to be used, including exposure devices, personal dose monitoring, radiation survey meters, and emergency equipment. Case histories of radiographic incidents and emergency response procedures, including practice drills, testing and maintenance of equipment. As low as reasonably achievable. Okay. This point, operating procedures to restrict radiation exposure to as low as reasonably achievable. This LRI stands for that, as low as is ionizing radiation. What's that? Radiobiological effects, terminology, units, dose and dose rates, including calculations using inverse square law and decay laws, with an emphasis on reduction of high dose rate close to an unshielded source, and characteristics of shielding materials, time, distance, and shielding as methods of protection. Measurement of radiation, operating procedures to restrict radiation exposures to as low as reasonably achievable. That's operating procedure to restrict radiation exposures. Regulatory authority requirements, safe storage and transportation requirements, specific instruction on operation of each piece of equipment to be used, including exposure devices, personal dose monitoring, radiation survey meters, and emergency equipment. Case histories of radiographic incidents and emergency response, Procedures including practice, drills, testing and maintenance of equipment, personal information, instruction and training. All other personnel such as assistant radiographers, drivers and storemen who are occupationally exposed have to receive information, instruction and training to extent necessary to enable them to conduct their work in accordance with requirement of operating organization and regulatory authority. Examples of topics in which these personnel are trained may include nature of ionizing radiations, health hazards from exposure to such radiations, basic principles and methods of protection, that is, namely time, distance, and shielding, measurement of radiation fields and units of measurement, warning signs and signals, and actions to be taken in emergencies. Training needs to be reinforced regularly. Training needs to be reinforced regularly, updated when necessary, and documented. A periodic review of training is undertaken to ensure its relevance and compliance with regulatory authority requirements. New personnel need receive required training before working with radioactive materials. Personnel monitoring. Workers, for example, radiographers, assistant radiographers, RPOs, service and maintenance personnel, emergency accident personnel who may receive significant occupational doses as defined by regulatory authority have to wear appropriate personal dosimeters, namely film, thermoluminescent dosimeters, TLD is called thermoluminescent dosimeters, TLDs, provided and processed by a laboratory or company that has been authorized by regulatory authority. In addition, a direct reading dosimeter and an audible or alarming rate meter have to be carried by radiographers working with ionizing radiations. Such devices are not substitute for radiation survey meters. Not a substitute for radiation survey meters. So personal dosimeters. You have to wear appropriate personal dosimeters. That's film and thermoluminescent dosimeters provided and processed by a laboratory or company that has been authorized by regulatory authority. In addition, a direct reading dosimeter and an audible or alarming rate meter have to be carried by a radiographer working with ionizing radiation. Such devices are not a substitute for radiation survey meter. Procedure for monitoring of workers. Procedures for monitoring of workers, including type of dosimeter, required and frequency of replacement, are to be chosen in consultation with RPO or qualified expert and as required by regulatory authority. Procedures for monitoring of workers, including type of dosimeter, required and frequency of replacement, are to be chosen in consultation with RPO or qualified expert and as required by regulatory authority. Results of personal monitoring measurements are to be recorded and reported as required by regulatory authority. If an overexposure occurs, if an overexposure occurs or is suspected, dosimeters have to be processed immediately. These and all reported dosimeter overexposures and abnormal exposures have to be investigated by operating organization. Workplace monitoring. Workplace monitoring. Monitoring system, monitoring instrument is single most important item of radiation safety related equipment. As such, it will have the following characteristics. It shall have a response appropriate for type of radiation being measured. It shall be in good working condition, formally calibrated and tested within a specified period, capable of measuring dose rates within range of 2.5 micro SV h to power minus 1 to 2 m SV h minus 1, which shall continue to indicate full scale at dose rate up to 100 mSv H2 minus 1, and shall have readily obtainable batteries and built-in battery check features. In choice of an instrument for field site operations, consideration should be given to durability in bad weather and poor conditions, reliability, portability, and ease of use in low light or in dark. A sufficient number of portable X-rays, and gamma radiation monitors need be provided. Surveys are to be undertaken at representative positions in controlled and supervised areas at intervals as advised by RPO. Records of surveys have to be kept for a period of time prescribed by regulatory authority. This monitoring confirms delineation of controlled and supervised area and immediately indicates failure in control of radiation source. Testing and maintenance of equipment. This is testing and maintenance of equipment. Operating organization is responsible for regularly testing safety functions of equipment as required by setting up a formal program of maintenance and testing. Formal program of maintenance and testing should include, for shielded enclosures, regular testing of safety interlock components and emergency stop devices for correct operation according to instructions of manufacturers. These tests are carried out by appropriately qualified persons. Radiation monitoring equipment is calibrated and tested before first use. After repair and at intervals approved by regulatory authority Pre-use test includes a test of instrument's overload performance to ensure that it operates correctly up to maximum credible dose rate it may encounter. Periodic examination of all safety critical components of gamma exposure devices and ancillary equipment. Typically, this is performed at least once a year. Periodic leak tests of radiography sources are carried out in a manner and at a frequency recommended by source supplier or manufacturer and in accordance with regulatory or other requirements. Periodic examination of safety critical components of X-ray exposure devices. Periodic examination of safety critical components of X-ray exposure devices and ancillary equipment. User generally examines equipment rarely. Other specific preventive maintenance and testing procedures as recommended by manufacturer can be followed. Test results are to be recorded and problem brought to attention of appropriate persons in operating organization. More detailed procedures for checks can be found in IAEA Practical Radiation Safety Manual on Gamma Radiation Radiography. Leak tests. Leak tests of radiography sources are to be generally performed at a frequency as set by regulatory authority. This frequency is based on activity classification. According to ISO, International Organization for Standardization Standards ISO 2919-56, and on whether they are of special form as described in Safety Standards Serial ST17, Supplier Information and Operational History. Leak test frequencies range from 6 months to several years. Typically, cobalt-60 source of higher than 370 GBq 10CI are to be leak tested at 6 or 12 months interval. IR192 sources are not normally leak tested as they are typically removed from use within a year. Owing to their short half-life, sources in storage are not normally leak tested unless they are to be used, moved or transferred or have been in storage for more than 10 years. If test results indicate less than 200 BQ for source wipe or 20 BQ for a wipe on an equivalent surface, no action other than record keeping is required. Tests which reveal presence of contamination on test sample are considered to be evidence that sealed source is leaking. In this event, source should immediately be withdrawn from service and appropriate action should be taken to prevent exposure of personal and dispersal of radioactive material. Operating organization has to notify regulatory authority immediately. Operational instructions. Operational instructions are needed. Operate equipment safely and be fully understood by authorized personnel. May be necessary to have these instructions in local language. May be necessary these instructions in local language. instruction should, as a minimum, include following: reminder of nature of hazard posed by industrial radiography. Reminder of nature of hazard posed by industrial radiography and safety features to control hazard. A reference to existence and location of written emergency procedures. A description of safety organization, including functions, duties, and responsibilities of RPO and workers. Description of routine operating instructions. A description of required radiation surveys to be performed during radiographic work. A description and schedule of internal inspections and test procedures. A description and schedule of internal inspections and test procedures for ensuring that all safety systems, devices, and components are functioning properly. Each safety item is to be designated, and appropriate test, check, and internal inspection applicable to it are to be specified. A description of proper use of personal radiation monitoring devices. Instructions covering actions to be taken in event of equipment malfunction, such as failure to terminate X-ray emission. Instructions covering actions to be taken in event of equipment malfunction, such as failure to terminate X-ray emissions or leaking or stuck radiography sources. Instructions covering actions to be taken in event of equipment malfunction, such as failure to terminate X-ray emissions or leaking or stuck radiography sources. Procedures for proper movement, transport, storage, and disposal of sources. Instruction for inventory control. Instructions for inventory control using records showing location of each source and worker responsible for it at all times. RPO has to establish investigational levels. RPO has to establish investigational levels for unusual exposures, even if they are below established dose limits. Radiographer is to notify RPO of whatever exposure greater than 100 mu SV per day and 2 m SV per month. Decommissioning. Operating organization is to ensure that activity and volume of whatever radioactive waste for which it is responsible are kept to minimum practicable, monitored and managed, organized. Waste needs be collected, handled, treated, conditioned, transported, stored, and disposed of in accordance with requirements of regulatory authority and other applicable standards such as IEA's Radioactive Waste Safety Program. Radioactive Waste Safety Program. Operating organization has to be aware of when exposure container and sealed source have reached the end of their working life. When exposure container and sealed source have reached end of their working life, and when they are to be disposed of in a safe and proper manner in accordance with national regulations. Radioactive waste safety program. Operating organization has to be aware of when exposure container and sealed source have reached end of their working life. Operating organization has to be aware of when exposure container and sealed source have reached end of their working life and when they are to be disposed of in a safe and proper manner in accordance with national regulations. So operating organization has to be aware of when exposed container and sealed source have reached end of their working life and when they are to be disposed of in a safe and proper manner in accordance with national regulations. These sources, as well as those which are no longer in use, may be transferred to manufacturers by agreement or to other authorized waste managers. Industrial radiography worker. Industrial radiographer worker. Industrial radiographer. Industrial radiographers have an important responsibility for ensuring safe conduct of their work. Their safety and that of other workers in immediate vicinity depends on their observance of a high standard of radiation safety at all times. Industrial radiographers have an important responsibility for ensuring safe conduct of their work. Their safety and that of other workers in immediate vicinity depends on their observance of a high standard of radiation safety at all times. Public and other persons who are in immediate vicinity when radiography is in progress can be adversely affected if work is not carried out to required levels of competence. Radiographer needs to achieve a level of competence by study and training which is recognized and accepted by appropriate professional bodies. Competent authorities, employers, and potential clients. Formal training is to be supplemented by appropriate experience and exchange of information, both theoretical and practical, with peers. Radiographers is to undergo periodic refresher training. Radiographer is to undergo periodic refresher training in radiation safety. It's important for radiographers to keep up to date with technology used in field and to fully understand correct use of radiographic and ancillary equipment provided. Radiographer has to maintain a professional attitude towards work and essential safety requirements. Need be alert and fully fit during work hours. Adequate supervision is to be exercised over less qualified workers who may be called upon to assist. Each radiographer has to receive medical examination as appropriate, as approved by regulatory authority to confirm fitness for work with ionizing radiations. Radiographer is to wear suitable dosimeters as directed by RPO during working time to measure total exposure to radiation. Radiographer should not expose others to radiation. Radiographer should not expose others to radiation unnecessarily to ensure that dose received is ALARA. As low as reasonably acceptable. No work to be undertaken which would place radiographer at risk of receiving a dose greater than whatever relevant national dose limit except in emergency situation. In often difficult and adverse conditions of industrial sites. In often difficult and adverse conditions of industrial sites, radiographer also has to consider known radiological hazards and to wear appropriate protective equipment. Radiographer is not to take risks that might jeopardize integrity, safety or security of radiation equipment, particularly radioactive sources or other radiation sensitive equipment. All necessary care requires to be taken to maintain radiographic and ancillary equipment in condition necessary to operate safely. Equipments not to be modified. All necessary care to be taken to maintain radiographic and ancillary equipment in condition necessary to operate safely. Equipment is not to be modified, abused or used for purposes for which it was not intended. Equipment which is not in proper working condition shall not be used. Radiographer has to be vigilant in identifying apparent problem and to report defects for repair. Radiographer is to perform all appropriate surveys to assess radiation hazards. In particular, accidental exposures are prevented by using radiation survey meter when approaching explosive. That's now. Equipment is not in proper working condition not to be used. Radiographer has to be vigilant in identifying apparent problems and to report whatever defects for repair. Radiographer is to perform all appropriate surveys to assess radiation hazards, in particular accidental exposure device, and by surveying exposure device for following every radiographic exposure. Radiographer has to be prepared to deal with reasonably foreseeable incidents with necessary equipment, unusual events, accidents and incident. Radiographer has to be prepared to deal with reasonably foreseeable incidents with necessary equipment. Unusual events, accidents, and incidents are to be reported to RPO. Radiographer is to exercise appropriate care at all times and work in accordance with instructions and defined operating and safety procedures. Manufacturers and suppliers. Devices for industrial gamma radiography are to be designed for conditions likely to be encountered in use. In all new equipment requires to be manufactured and classified according to ISO 3999, an equivalent standard or national requirement. Sealed sources are to be in compliance with requirements of ISO 2919. If sources or exposed containers are to be transported, they are to comply with IAA safety standards. Tests. Approval testing of all devices. Prototypes to be carried out in accordance with ISO 9000 or an equivalent national standard by a body which is recognized by a national government as being qualified to make a full and impartial assessment. If an exposure container is designed for use in more than one class and or category, prototype is to be subject to test of each appropriate class and or category. With each device, manufacturer has to provide a certificate of conformity. So if an exposure, approval testing of all prototypes is to be carried out in accordance with ISO 9000 or an equivalent national standard by a body which is recognized by a national government as being qualified to make a full and impartial assessment. If an exposure container is designed for use in more than one class and or category, prototype is to be subject to tests of each appropriate class and or category. With each device, manufacturer has to provide a certificate of conformity of device to identify standards met. Test data may be requested from manufacturer as specified in national requirements. Instruction for use and maintenance. Operations manual provides instructions for assembling exposure device and ancillary equipment for safe operation, operating exposure device with warning of risk of radiation exposure, that may result from failure to absorb these instructions. Storing exposure device in a suitable environment with whatever necessary protective coatings. This scope and frequency of routine maintenance, operations and checks on exposure devices and ancillary equipment such as control cables, guide tubes and exposure heads. Remote control system maintenance, procedures in event of foreseeable accidents. Procedures in event of foreseeable accidents with an indication of their probable causes. Performing a gamma source exchange and preparing decayed source for transportation and disposal. Checking projection and source guide tubes. Checking projection and source guide tubes and exposures head for internal cleanliness, deformation, breakage or tear. Checking safety critical components of exposure device for wear, breakage. Performing a gamma source exchange and preparing decayed source for transportation and disposal. Checking projection and source guide tubes and exposure head for checking projection and source guide tubes and exposure head for internal cleanliness, deformation, breaking or tear, checking safety critical components of exposure device for wear, breakage or deformation. Checklist. Now, limitations on use, that is environmental conditions, documentation on source classification, special form and leak testing is to be provided by manufacturer. Quality Assurance Program. A standard for quality assurance program is established according to ISO 9001, an equivalent standard or a national standard for design, manufacture, testing, inspection, and documentation of all sources and devices. Quality assurance program provides assurance that design satisfies all appropriate standards applicable to sources and devices. Any or whatever subsequent discovery of problems which may compromise safety is to be brought to attention of all previous purchasers of similar equipment. A documented quality, actually it is assurance to the requirement. A documented quality of requirement manual need be established and maintained by each manufacturer of sources and exposure devices. For industrial radiography, a documented quality assurance manual needs to be established and maintained by each manufacturer of sources and exposure devices for industrial radiography. This manual documents implementation of all aspects of quality assurance program requirement. This manual documents implementation of all aspects of quality assurance program including organization, design controls, procurement, document control, instructions, procedures and drawings. Document control, quantity of purchase, control of purchase material, equipment and services, identification and control of material, parts and components, control of special processes, internal inspections and test control, control of measuring and test equipment, corrective actions, handling, storage and shipping, control, quality assurance records and audits. Radiography, source and then we can say radiography sources and gamma exposure devices to be transported need meet quality assurance programs specified in IAEA safety standards and relevant national requirements. Client. Client is organization or person responsible for hiring, operating organization to do work. Client should always use an operating organization that is authorized according to national requirements. Client needs provide operating organization with sufficient lead time to plan and execute work safely and enable compliance with any or whatever advance notification required by regulatory authority. Client is not to impose contractual conditions that would hinder operating organization from performing safe radiography. In general, regulatory and safety requirements take precedence. Client is to ensure that radiography is coordinated with other work on site to minimize risk of radiation or other hazards to all workers on site, including radiographers. A permit to work system helps to ensure effective communication and coordination of different jobs on site. Client is responsible for providing a safe working environment for radiographers, including secure scaffolding, adequate lighting, and arrangements for working in vessels or trenches. Table 1, typical radio radionuclides used in industrial radiography. Radionuclides, next is gamma energies, then half-life, and then optimum steel thickness of object materials. Radionuclides, cobalt 60, high 1.17 and 1.33. This is gamma energies. Half-life is 5.3 years. Optimum steel thickness subject to materials. Then caesium, CAESIUM, caesium 137, high 0.662, 30 years, 50 to 100 mm. Iridium 192, medium 0.2 to 1.4, 74 days, 10 to 70 mm. Selenium 75, medium 0.12 to 0.97, 120 days, 4 to 28. Ytterbium 169, low 0.008, 0.31, 32 days, 2.5 to 15 mm. If necessary and possible, client provides a suitable location for radiography company to safely and securely store radioactive material. Type of exposure devices. A wide range of exposure devices are commercially available to carry out industrial radiography. Range includes equipment for performing gamma. And a wide range of exposure devices are commercially available to carry out industrial radiography. Range includes equipment for performing gamma and X-ray radiography, and a summary of their general characteristics provided. Neutron radiography, a specialized technique, is briefly mentioned. Gamma radiography, source and containers. Minimum requirements for gamma ray sources for industrial radiography are contained in ISO standard 2919 and generally satisfy requirements for special form radioactive material. Iridium 192 is ideal for radiography, but other radionuclides can be used depending on characteristics of test object material. Sealed sources to be stored in a safely shielded location within specially designed exposure container. Sealed source is usually attached to a control cable. Sealed source is usually attached to a control cable. Source holder or source assembly. Sealed source is to be stored in a safely shielded location within specially designed exposure container. Sealed source is usually attached to a control cable, source holder or source assembly, and has appropriate permanent markings. A definitive action by radiographer is necessary to expose source. Source is to be exposed only to extent that is necessary to produce a satisfactory radiograph. After radiographic exposure, source is to be returned to its safe stored position. Dummy sources or photographs of sources will help radiographers to recognize and identify real ones in an emergency. A sketch of source assembly is shown. Source assembly. Source assembly, source pigtail connector, that is source assembly. Location of break, male connector, drive cable. Source assembly. Okay. Says dummy source of photographs of source shall help radiographers to recognize and identify real ones in an emergency. Sketch of this is shown. Manufacturer sometimes provides a recommended working lifetime RWL, working lifetime, for a source. These manufacturers recommend that work with the source stops when age of source reaches RWL. Regulatory authority may recommend certain tests for continued use after source reaches RWL, such as increased frequency of leak tests or assessment by a qualified expert with appropriate facilities. Sealed source has to be stored inside an exposure container. Also called an exposure device or camera, which is appropriate for and compatible with source. Source holder or source assembly, exposure container and ancillary equipment have to comply with requirement of ISO 3999 and equivalent. This is portable exposure device and this is mobile exposure device. Standard or national requirements. Standard satisfied by exposure container and ancillary equipment is documented for review by regulatory authority. Standard satisfied by exposure container and ancillary equipment is documented for review by regulatory authority. Containers are classified according to their mobility, which shows Class P and Class M respectively, portable and mobile exposure devices. Class P, Class M, Class F. Class B, portable exposure container designed to be carried out by one or more persons. Mass of Class B container does not exceed 50 kg. Class M, mobile but not portable exposure container designed to be moved easily by a suitable means provided for purpose. No, M mobile but not portable exposure container designed to be moved easily by suitable means provided for purpose, for example a trolley. F is fixed installed exposure container or one with mobility restricted to confines of a defined working location such as a shielded enclosure. Three classes of exposures container generally operate by exposing source in one or two ways. Alright. Three classes of exposure containers generally operate by exposing source in one or two ways as depicted in figure 4 to 6. Category 1. Category 1. Source is not removed from exposure container. For an exposure, source is stored at center of a block of shielding material. Source is not removed from exposure container. For an exposure, source is stored at center of a block of shielding material. A portion of shielding can be removed or shielding of sources moved to expose source. Solid angle of useful beam is not usually more than 60 degrees. Container usually limits beam dimension, but additional collimation may be used to limit beam further to minimum size necessary for radiography. Movement is controlled either directly or by remote means. This is exposure container, radioactive shield source. This is category 1, exposure container, this is that, and radioactive shield source. Protecting type and shadow type. Category 1, exposure devices. Category 2. Category 2. Source assembly is mechanically projected. Source, that category 2 is here. Let's see, this is category 2, I think. Source assembly is mechanically projected out of container and travels along a guide tube projection sheath to expose head to exposure head. Projection is hand or motor driven by radiographer. Source assembly is usually moved by a cable. Source assembly is usually moved by a cable. Systems that rely on negative air pressures or gravity to return source to shielded position may not be designed to fail safe, and hence some regulatory authorities shall not authorize use of such systems. Projection systems enable radiographers operate system at a safe distance. Source assembly is mechanically projected out of containers and travels along a guide tube projection sheath to exposure head. Projection is hand or motor driven by radiographer. Source assembly is usually moved by a cable. Systems that rely on negative air pressure or gravity to return source to shielded position may not be designed to fail safe, and hence some regulatory authority shall not authorize use of such system. Projection systems enable radiographer to operate system at a safe distance from source. End of guide tube is placed in a collimator locating source in desired position and limiting beam to minimum size necessary for task. Some gamma exposures devices are designed for special applications such as pipe crawler equipment and underwater radiography apparatus. Gamma exposure devices are not to be used in conditions for which they were not designed. Effects of corrosion, moisture, mud, sand and other foreign matter are to be considered during design and manufacture of container. Says shape S-shape model. It's a shape model, and this is here is shield. You can say this is shield. Radioactive shield source. Rotating model. This is finger type model, that is rotating model, and this is finger type model. In this finger type model, category 2 exposure container. Now, approved standard in place shall ensure control of dose rates to acceptable level close to exposure container. For example, ISO 3999 specifies dose rate limits for various classes of exposure containers as shown in table 2. Exposure containers are often designed as transport packages and are tested and certified to type B standard. They withstand severe impact forces, crushing forces, immersion in liquid and heat strikes. Approved standards in place ensures control of dose rate to acceptable levels close to exposure container. For example, ISO 3999 specifies dose rate limits for various classes of exposure containers as shown. Exposure containers are often designed as transparent transport. Exposure containers are often designed as transport packages and are tested in certified to Type B standards. They shall withstand severe impact forces, crushing forces, immersion in liquid, and now exposure containers are often designed as transport packages and are tested and certified to Type B. Type B, that is standards, they will withstand severe impacts. So they will withstand severe impacts forces, crushing forces, immersion in liquid, and heat stress without release of radioactive contents or significant loss in shielding. Now this is Category 2 gamma radiograph apparatus. Category 2 gamma radiograph apparatus, figure 6. This is an apparatus here, exposure container. This is number 1, exposure container. Number 2, radioactive shield source. This is radioactive shield source. Number 3, source holder. Number 3 is source holder. Number 4 is remote control. Remote control. Number 5 is control cable and sheath. Projection sheath. 6th, projection sheath. Exposure head. Reserve sheath. So exposure container number 1, that is exposure container, radioactive shield source, source holder, then remote control, then control cable and sheath, exposure head, reserve sheath. All exposure containers are to be fitted with an integral lock. All exposure containers are to be filled with an integral lock which retains key when source is in exposed position. If lock is damaged, it does not prevent source assembly from returning from exposed to secure position. Table 2 maximum dose rate allowed for class of containers ISO 3999. Maximum dose equivalent are micron SVH-1, class P, M and F on external surface of container 2000, 2000 at 50 mm from external surface of container, and this is reduced air 1/4, half air at 1 mm from external surface containers. This so each exposure container or a metallic plate fixed to container is to be permanently and indelibly marked by engraving, stamping, or other means with approved details, including basic ionizing radiation symbol complying with International Organization for Standardization ISO 361. Basic ionizing radiation symbol complying with International Organization. Word radioactive in letters not less than 10 mm in height. Maximum rating of exposure container for intended radionuclides in becquerels, and ISO 39910 equivalent standard and edition, which exposure container and its accessories conform to. Exposure container manufacturer's name, model number and serial number of device. Class, category and total mass of exposure container. Mass of depleted uranium. Shielding of replicable or indication contains depleted uranium. In addition, exposure conditions displays a durable fireproof label or tag bearing information about radioactive source contained in exposure device, including chemical symbol and mass number of radionuclides, activity and date on which it was measured in butyl, identification number of sealed sources, and identify certain so we'll take it next time, I think better. Problem is that we are can say here we are going to do with this, of course. So now we'll go closure, we'll give closure to this. Okay. It's time now to give close to this one. So that panoramic radiating tube, panoramic radiating tube assembly with conical end and out. So we'll now do. Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's okay. Fine.